welcome back to Green Eyed Starlet. If you are new here, hello and welcome. My name is Brandy and I'm working to live a life worth living through art, movement, and exploration. So it feels like Saturday videos have kind of just become these like deep, emotional, spiritual, mental talks. I felt like I was going somewhere with that and then it just went off. But yeah, I feel like Saturday videos have kind of become just this good vibes, let's talk about the world and know that everything is crazy both inside and out, and that is okay, or that it will be okay one day. I don't know. And honestly, I've really enjoyed not scripting these videos. One, because I think it allows me to just kind of switch up and change on the dime if something comes to me, but also I just feel like my personality comes out a little bit more when I'm not reading off a script, even if it's words that I wrote. So yeah, you guys were onto something. I hope you guys continue to enjoy the unscripted videos because they're probably gonna be here for a while. So for this week's video, I thought we could talk about the concept or the idea of everything happens for a reason. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in watching, then please consider giving this video a big thumbs up and keep watching. Now, I feel like we've all heard this phrase probably about 1,000,000 times in our life, and that is everything happens for a reason. And you may believe this, you may not. I personally have always wanted to believe that that is something that is true. You know, everything does happen for a reason. I think I've kind of preached that to friends in the past when I'm trying to give them advice about something or when I'm trying to make peace with something myself. But then you run into the debate or the argument of how do you explain bad things, what good could possibly come of this tragedy, this X, this Z. And on one hand, like right now, what's happening in the world is a good example of how it's kind of hard to find a reason or an explanation of why everything happens for a reason. And I think each person could probably come up with one thing for them specifically that, you know, you could kind of use as an example of like, well, you know, this sucks. Everything about this sucks, but I'm glad that it happened because of this or because of that. So I can understand why if something bad happens, it's harder to believe that everything happens for a reason. But at the same time, when something really good happens out of nowhere, how do we explain that? That's when a lot of the times I feel like it's easier for us to latch onto the idea of like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. Like that good thing, that amazing thing was always coming our way and was always gonna happen in our lives, you know? I think humans as a whole, like the human condition and the human species and just humanity as a whole, honestly really enjoys grabbing onto something, latching onto something to blame, or I guess blame is the word I want to use, but both in a good way and a bad way. Like we like to have this idea of a higher power or, you know, guardian angels or, you know, whatever we believe in. And I don't really want to get too much into like religion or anything like that. Maybe we can get into that topic in another video if you guys want. But one thing that I do kind of want to touch on is I do believe in guardian angels. Like I have a very strong belief that I have a guardian angel, and I'm not super religious in that regard, but I truly do believe that my great-grandmother, who I actually never met, I believe that she is my guardian angel, and my family has kind of made jokes about that all my life. I feel like I've talked about this in a video before, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, my family has joked around about since I was a child that like I would talk to nothing above me, and you know, you could chuck that up to just being a baby and doing baby things, but I've always felt this really strong attachment to this woman that I technically have never met in my entire life. She actually passed away before I was born, and yet I feel her presence a lot. And I know that might not be everyone's cup of tea for me to like kind of blabber on about this, but it's part of my truth and it's part of how I process a lot of things. The biggest reason I guess that I wanted to make this video today and just about this topic in general is that last week a tree pretty much destroyed half of my childhood home. There was a tornado in the area and it broke a tree that fell on basically the exact wall that separates my old room and my brother's room. Basically tore down the center, and it's really insane, honestly. Like, the pictures are crazy. It's like my stomach dropped, and I don't live there. I haven't lived there since like 2013 or whatever, but that's, you know, my childhood home. That's like my family's home. I've only ever lived in one other house other than that before, or I guess two other houses, but I don't remember the first one. But so that was like my childhood home. My dad had lived in that house in the room that I lived in before me, and his little sister also lived in that room. So like, it had a lot of sentimental value. That house has been in our family for a long time, and the fact that, you know, both the house was kind of destroyed and all of my brother's things got completely drenched and everything. Like, I should have said this before, but no one was hurt. No one was hurt. Actually, no one was even home when it happened, and the animals that were home were completely safe as well. I should have said that before. Everyone was safe and fine. And obviously you're asking yourself probably right now, like, okay, but that's something really bad. How could that like have happened for a reason? And like, I don't specifically think that, you know, the tree falling on the house happened for a reason, but there are so many factors that go into it that make me think like, wow, no, like someone was looking out for us in that regard, because a few weeks prior to this happening, me and Ben had even considered going back up to Tallahassee to help like work for my dad so that we could make a little extra money during all of this time. So we had considered going up there, and if we had gone up there, we might have been in my room and staying in that room when that happened. And I've actually never lived through a real tornado or anything, so that would be absolutely terrifying. And so the fact that, one, we decided not to go up to Tallahassee, and the fact that we weren't in that house is like kind of like, oh, well, why did we decide that? Like, you know, what caused us to stay here? That's one factor. The other factor is, and it kind of sucks in some regards, and this is one of those moments where you can think like, okay, so this is a bad thing. Why did this bad thing happen? So the day prior to the tree falling and the tornado, my dad was going to pick up stuff for his work in Georgia, and his truck broke down. That caused my brother to have to go get a spare truck to drive up, pick my dad up, drive him back to Tallahassee, and then the next day when this happened, they drove back up to Georgia to get my father's truck. If my dad's truck hadn't broken down in the first place, then my brother probably would have been at home in his room, and like my dad kind of laid this out even a little bit more scary like in some ways, and he was saying that there is, I guess it was like one of the ceiling beams literally was through my brother's bed, like where you would be like sleeping. And now this happened during the day, so there's no like say that my brother would have been, you know, lying in bed completely sprawled out, but just the fact that he could have been home and wasn't home because he was doing this other thing kind of like makes me feel weird about the whole situation. Another factor of this that really makes me, you know, feel like everything happens for a reason is, you know, this is gonna take a lot of money to fix, and I don't know if my family's choosing to keep the house or sell it after this is all said and done and the house is back up to code and fixed and everything, but in a way it's kind of a good thing that it happened to our house instead of some of the neighbors around us, because some of the neighbors that live around our house are, you know, 50 plus years old and have lived in those houses for many upon many of years, like since we moved into that house, and I know we've owned that house forever, so I know they've lived in those houses forever, and they wouldn't have anywhere to go probably if the tree had fallen on their house and the house was no longer livable. But my family actually is lucky enough that most of us have other places to stay, and we're kind of already staying in other places. So I think that's another factor that it's like, yeah, it really sucks that it happened to our house, and that factor of like, why me? Why couldn't it have been X or Z or Y or whatever letter you want to use? But in the end, it's kind of a good thing, you know, for the greater good of, I guess, the neighborhood is what I'm kind of getting at here. And I don't know how well my dad or my brother or my mom will feel about me saying that, but you know, we will be able to bounce back from this. And I'm not saying that the neighbors wouldn't be able to bounce back from this, but I know that we as a family will be able to fix this. My brother's like a contractor and stuff like that, and my dad's super freaking handy. So like, I know we can come back from this, and it's not like the end of the world. And like, I feel like obviously those were a lot of really great examples of, you know, everything happens for a reason, or a great way to look at a situation and be like, well, yeah, I guess everything did happen for a reason. But that's not like like the only example I have in my life. There are many upon many examples of it. Another one really close to my heart is actually how I met Ben. Now, me and Ben actually worked together at one point at Universal and technically met there, but I feel bad always admitting this, but I truly don't really remember that day that we met. But a few days later, I do remember on, literally it was Christmas night, which when you're a theme park employee, you work 24/7, 365 days a year. And I actually worked that Christmas, and after my shift, I was supposed to go on a date with another guy, and I was walking around Disney Springs, which is where Ben was working a like part-time job at the time for Christmas time, a seasonal job there. And I was walking around Disney Springs with my roommate and best friend Nicole, and she and I could kind of tell that I think I was going to be stood up. So I was like, well, okay, if he's literally going to blow me off and not text me XYZ, let's just go get a drink, because she was gonna hang out with me until he got there, and then me and him were gonna go see a movie. But this guy literally wasn't responding to my text messages, and anytime he did respond, he was kind of being super vague about everything. And then finally he did come out and he was like, oh, I'm just not feeling so good after work today, so, and I'm like, okay. So we ended up going out and getting drinks, and I'm not a huge drinker in the first place. Every now and then I'm like, let's go get drinks. And I am like part lightweight, part I like acting like I'm drunk, so I never personally know if I'm drunk or if I'm acting. That is a game for any of my friends who know me and have seen me drunk. I play a game called Am I Drunk or Am I Acting? But mostly I'm probably just drunk. But anyways, I was kind of tipsy when we were walking around Springs, and we went into the store that Ben works at or worked at, and because I was, you know, a little tipsy, a little bit more loose with my, you know, thoughts and words and stuff, we talked to him in the store, and he was wearing this awful Christmas suit that I just will never get over. He still owns it, and it's just the worst thing ever. I just can't. But because he grabbed my attention, I kind of remembered him from work and everything, and me and Nicole and him were all just kind of talking at the front of the store and stuff. And when we left there, I was kind of like just thinking to myself, I'm like, I had just been stood up, I was a little tipsy, was he kind of cute, or am I just drunk? You know what I mean? And like, if I hadn't been stood up that night, I wouldn't have been in that store, first of all, so I wouldn't have even met him for real in the first place. But also, if I hadn't been stood up and I had gone into that store, I definitely wouldn't have been in the mindset of, you know, looking for another guy, which sounds even more predatory. Like, I wasn't looking for another man, but just the idea of the whole thing kind of freaks me out. And I literally saw him the very next day. I had only worked with him the one time, never seen him any other time than that. And then the very next day at work, I saw him again, like passing before our shift starts. And I'm like, universe, what you doing over there? And it's just one of those things where it just feels like everything was in the right place at the right time, and even being stood up and being like, wow, it really sucks being stood up, but like, why did that happen? And just kind of, I don't know, I feel like everything does happen for a reason, and it is hard to find that in bad things, but it's also really cool when you kind of look back, and that hindsight is 2020, when you look back and you kind of put some of the puzzle pieces together and you're like, wait a second, if that didn't happen, then that wouldn't have happened, and then that wouldn't have happened. And it's kind of a game I actually really enjoy. Another one I just thought about that's like completely random is I started taking an acting class a long time ago that I learned about from a girl that I worked at Universal. And it's like, if I hadn't known that girl at Universal, I wouldn't have known about the acting classes, which means I wouldn't have met my best friend Molly, who actually introduced me to one of my favorite jobs that I currently still do outside of quarantine. But it's just one of those things that's crazy and really cool to like actually put those pieces together. Like I said many times in this video, I think it's really easy to, you know, say everything happens for a reason when it's something good that happens, but it's not so easy when something bad happens and you have to kind of sit there and be like, okay, well, everything happens for a reason, so why did this happen? I think a lot of the times we think about something bad happening to us and we go, why me? Like, why now? Why me? Why? And I think that's a very negative way to look at things when you're saying like, why did it have to happen to me? Why couldn't it have happened to someone else in that regard? I think it's more important to use it as like a lesson in some ways, and maybe ask, you know, why me? Why now? Why this? And go, okay, why me? well, I needed to be steered away from X so that I could focus on Z and stuff like that. I don't know why I keep skipping Y in the alphabet. I go from X to Z and I'm just like, I don't know. Y disappeared. Why? I don't know. I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. Oh, I'm getting heated talking about this. Okay. I think when we want to find what that reason for something happening, whether we figure it out immediately, a week from now, a month from now, or 3 years from now, like there are some things that I look back on from like high school that I've journaled about and been like, holy crap, if that happened, then I wouldn't have done that, and then I wouldn't have done that, and then I wouldn't be sitting here right now today. So like, it's really crazy, but I think it's important for us to reframe the bad, negative situations or the why me's of the world and reframe it to find a lesson in all of it, to find, you know, how can we grow from something? Because I think at the end of the day, like, life is a process, life is a journey, and we're just always trying to get better and change and learn from our mistakes. Like, mistakes are one of the most invaluable things in this world because we learn so much from our mistakes. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you believe? Do you believe that everything happens for a reason, or do you think that everything is happen chance, or do you think that just life is life and you're moving along with it? I would love to know, so please leave me a comment below telling me, do you believe that everything happens for a reason? Why or why not? And as always, if you enjoyed today's video, please, please, please consider giving this video a big thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. And hit that subscribe button if you're not already. I post videos every Wednesday, Saturday, sometimes Mondays, sometimes. And you do not want to miss out on a single one. So I love you guys so, so, so much. I hope you have a great day, a great week, and I will see you soon.